Teruvan Saranai සියලු දෙනාටම. Behalf of the Dhamma Center Colchester, I welcome all of you with metta for this special Dhamma talk by Venerable Hokandara Panyavasa Thero, the founder of the Colchester Dhamma Center. Today, the 26th of May, a very special day. The significance of the day is, it happens to be our Bhante Panyavasa's birthday. A profound teacher in Dhamma and a Kalyana Mitra. Thank you, Bhante, and much merits to you for all the knowledge and the guidance you give us in Dhamma daily. And all our blessings are with you, Bhante, on your birthday. Sarat and Devika Jayasinghe, together with their daughter, Sandamali, from USA, have invited Bhante to deliver this special Dhamma talk on the occasion of his birthday. And they want to bestow merits to our Bhante for best of health, long life, and strength to continue with this Dhammadana to achieve his goals in life. And also, they want to confer merits to all the friends in Dhamma, the Kalyana Mitras in the Dhamma Center group. The topic is the significance of wholesome companionship in pursuit of happiness. I think a friendship or a companionship is a kind of virtue, and it is also necessary for living. We all need friends. So Bhante, without taking much time, with utmost respect, I invite you to deliver the talk. It's over to you, Bhante.
Thank you, Anuma. Thank you, Anuma. All right. Before the start of the session, let us all chant Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Before we move on to the talk, I would like to use this opportunity to also engage in a few moments of practice before we start our talk. So if we come into a meditation posture for a few moments of guided meditation to ease into what the topic of today is also going to be. So if you take a deep breath in as we gently close our eyes, coming into a meditating position, comfortable. The back straight, upright, the hands resting on your lap. As you take a deep breath in, coming into the present. Breathing out, letting go, relaxing mind and body. Putting aside the past and the future. And simply focusing upon this present. Putting aside all that you want to get done through the rest of the day. As you gently come into a state of awareness based upon the present, observing the breath. Deep breath in Breathing out, relax, relax. Deep breath in, breathing out, relaxing even more deeply. Gently, gently. Guiding your undivided attention to observe the rise and the fall of the breath. The ever-changing nature of the breath. And you, as the observer, simply observing, noticing without any attachment, without any judgment. Observing the breath closely, gently, with every passing moment, the mind coming into a deeper state of awareness and present moment being, unhindered, calm, and steadfast, with awareness over the breath. With awareness over the breath. Being very gentle, but swiftly, with every passing moment, letting go deeper and deeper, allowing yourself to go deeper into a state of profound relaxation, mind and body. Simply being and no doing, simply observing without any judgment, attachment, or craving. Just be. Just be. Just be. Just be. Just be. Relaxed. And within this moment, let us gently with a profoundly moving sense of being and relaxation based upon the present, based upon the present. Let us tap into the warmest parts of our being, all the loving kindness that we could possibly muster as we radiate these strong vibrations fueled by one-pointedness, samadhi, wisdom, and inspiration drawn from the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. Let us share these vibrations of loving kindness in all directions, unhindered by any bias, to all beings near and far, known and unknown, those whom we can relate to and those whom we cannot relate to. All organisms in this world, sharing in this human experience and sharing the experience of life, conditioned by impermanence, suffering, and non-self. May all beings be touched by this loving kindness. May all those beings be well and happy. Be well and happy. Be well and happy. Free of animosity, hatred, frustration, and only toxic natures that impedes and disrupts the mind. May our wishes be for the betterment of all beings, for health and well-being of all beings near and far. May all beings be well and happy. Well and happy. Well and happy. Well and happy. Gently, gently, taking a deep breath in, relaxing the mind and the body. Another deep breath in, centering yourself upon the present, feeling the bliss and peace of the present, devoid of all disruptions, silent, calm, tranquil in nature. As we take another deep breath in, and when you are ready, Bhavatu Sambha Mangalang Rakhantu Sambha Devata Sambha Buddhanu Bhavina Sada Soti Bhavantute Bhavatu Sambha Mangalam Rakhantu Sambha Devata Sambha Dhammanu Bhavina Sada Soti Bhavantute Bhavatu Sambha Mangalang Rakhantu Sambha Devata Sambha Sanganu Bhavina Sada Soti Bhavantute Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, everyone. So today's talk is based upon the significance, the importance of companionship in the pursuit of happiness, of course, relayed through the path of the Dhamma, the path of the Buddha, expounded by the Buddha. According to the teachings of the Buddha, we find ourselves walking upon a path that has been expounded some 2,600 odd years ago, a path which has been taught in a way which leads towards nirvana, a state of being which is unconditioned, a state of being that is distant from selfish, self-based notions and being. And when we recall, or any time that we think about Kalyana Mitrata or companionship, wholesome companionship, we are always reminded of when Venerable Ananda inquired, or rather stated to the Buddha, saying that he thinks, he assumes that Kalyana Mitrata or Kalyana Sampatti is half of the Buddhist practice, 50%. This was stated by Venerable Ananda in the Upadda Sutra of the Samyutta Nikaya, where Venerable Ananda, the Buddha's attendant, sort of says, Bhante, I think, Kalyana Mitrata, having Kalyana Mitra spiritual friendship is half of the path. And the Buddha says, no, Ananda, it is not. It is the path itself. It is the path that leads to the development of the Eightfold Noble Path, the Arya Ashtangika Magga, which leads towards enlightenment and the noble states. The Sutra of the Upadda Sutra continues to speak about a state where, after the Buddha says or corrects Ananda, the Buddha goes on to, or within the sutra, it mentions that the Buddha can be a Kalyana Mitra. And the positions held, or the states, the features of a Kalyana Mitra as well, which we will come to in a bit. But why, when we look into why or how the Buddha can be a Kalyana Mitra, we find that in the persona or the way that the Buddha is a person that who we all know, we have nothing to give to the Buddha, of course, because he is the Buddha. But we have ample to get from the Buddha. His wisdom, his loving kindness, his compassion, and all of these attributes which we are actually benefiting from to this day, 2,500 odd years after his demise itself. We are still benefiting from the vibrations of the Buddha's companionship. The power of his Kalyana Mitrata has not yet passed from the world. It still vibrates throughout our hearts, our practice, which has led to even most of the people in this group who have literally committed their whole day in, day out, committing oneself to the Dhamma, to learn the Dhamma, to pursue the Dhamma, to practice meditation. This is the result of the Buddha's vibrations left through his Kalyana Mitrata, as in accordance with the Upadda Sutra. What is the essence of Kalyana Mitrata? That itself is the essence of Kalyana Mitrata, which is the power of not expecting anything in return, but simply being able to give. Rooted in, the Buddha claims, rooted in 4 aspects. Or if the Kalyana Mitra or the person has this 4, the Kalyana Mitrata or the power of the Kalyana Mitra increases. You become or you find true companionship rooted in these 4. What is that? We know Shraddha, Sila, Chaga, Panya. Saddha, Sila, Chaga, Panya, a love's companionship. When your Saddha, Sila, Chaga, Prajna connects or vibrates in the same frequency of another person's Saddha, Sila, Chaga, Panya, the Buddha says that this is the perfect match for Kalyana Mitrata, where a person is able to walk on a path, a journey together. The power of Kalyana Mitrata is beyond comparison, everyone. We see that power in the Buddha 2,600 or rather 2,500 odd years ago. We see that power still vibrating through samsara, which we are all benefiting from. Known or unknown, we benefit from it. For example, the teachings of mindfulness, meditation, regardless of whether we are Buddhists or not, we find so many people who practice meditation. In other ways, how has the Buddha spoken about this Kalyana Mitrata? For example, the Buddha speaks about a mother and a father. The Buddha goes on to say that a child, should the child shower the parent with all the gold and silver of the world, adorn the parent with all the wealth that the child could, give all the comforts that they possibly could of the world, however, yet that the child is unable to repay the debt incurred by the unconditional love showered upon the child by the mother and the father. That is what the Buddha says. But what does repay that debt according to the Buddha? That debt is repaid. That debt is repaid by the child instigating or supporting the development, the growth of Shraddha or Sila or Chaga or Prajna of the parents towards what? Towards Nirvana. යම් කිසි විදියකට නිවන් මාර්ගයේ කෙරෙහි මව්පියන්ගේ තිබෙන ශ්‍රද්ධාව, සීලය, සතිය, ඡාගය, ප්‍රඥාව යම් කිසි ආකාරයකින් ටිකකින් හරි වැඩි කරොත් යම් කිසි විදියකට ඒ සද්ධාව, සීලය, සති, ඡාගය, ප්‍රඥාව වැඩි කරන්න උපකාරයක් වුණොත් අර that whole debt that we have, the Buddha said, is repaid. That is the power of Kalyana Mitrata. That is the power of Kalyana Mitrata. The child in that respect becomes a Kalyana Mitra to the parents. Just as the Buddha is a Kalyana Mitra to all of us here. A Kalyana Mitra, to become a Kalyana Mitra, is a rather challenging thing. It is very much easier in comparison to be a Kalyana Mitra towards a person who is known as your family. Because, you know, if it's a child, this is my child. I gave birth to this child. If this is my mother or father, this is my mother and father. Especially if you're Sri Lankans or coming from an Eastern background or a more cultural background, we have it within our culture to do so as well. However, as a friend, as a person who is not related, it can be a little bit more challenging to have that kind of an unconditional monoa karat. මම මේ පුද්ගලයාට උදව් කරනවා කියන පරාර්ථකාමී චේතනාව හටගන්නේ බොහෝම කලාතුරකින්. ඒක අපි ඔක්කොමලම දන්නවා. How? According to the teachings of the Buddha, a true Kalyana Mitra can only be formed by the ability of the person to understand themselves deeply. What is understanding themselves deeply? What is this? This is Nama and Rupa. If we go deeper, Skandha, Ayatana, Dhatu, Satcha. If we go deeper, we can go from the mind into the Mano Dhatu, Mano Vijnana Dhatu. We can go into the Kilesha. We can go to the different types of the Kileshas. The Anusaya, the Pariyuttana, the Vitikama. Different types of Kilesas and mechanisms and the Niyama Dharmas that all together in operation allows the being to function as the being does. The memory aspects of the mind connects all of these realities together. So, the prajnaptis as well as the ultimate, together in a manner that we would, through avidya and delusion, of course, relate to these persons as my family, rooted or connected to you in some manner. However, in reality, this is Nama and Rupa. This Nama and Rupa Dhamma, to a mundane person, we know spiritual friendship has two parts. One being that rooted in the mundane path, or that rooted towards the support of mundane life rather, and one which is supported to the lokottara life, right? In both aspects, there is no harm. Even in mundane life, somehow, because of kalyana mitrata, yam kisi vidyakin, yam kisi akarakin, kavadari nivan margeta වැටෙනවා. ලෞකික මාර්ගිකින් හරි කල්යාණ මිත්‍රයෙක් හිටියොත්. In coming to know oneself, one knows, we are talking about the supramundane path, one knows that this self, or one comes to realize that this self is impermanent, suffering, and non-self. Gently coming into the realization that there is no self. It is hard to realize, but we have some sort of an idea. This is not experiential understanding, but conceptual understanding. As a concept, we will know. Because if we say that it is experiential understanding, then only arahants and enlightened beings can truly be kalyana mitras, which is also related in a certain way by the Buddha in specific sutras, but that is not the only kalyana mitras that we find in the Sutra Pitaka. Kalyana mitras have to have a sense that this self that we see is a mechanism that rolls on its own, supported by the different niyamas and the different dhammas, the different mechanisms, thus precluding or alluding to the fact of selflessness. When selflessness becomes a thing within the present, where you have an idea, there is this sense of anatma, a person becomes more confident in the present moment. Why? This is why. Because the person understands that weakness is a part of the being. The person understands that hindrances, kileshas, ogres, yogas, all of these fetters that arise is a part and parcel of the being. The being being you and I and everyone else, every organism in this samsara. Organisms that arose in the past and have now ceased, organisms that are present in the present, and organisms who will arise in the future as well, all belonging to this cycle of rebirth and death, flawed by nature, flawed in mind. Hence, there is no perfection. That is the self or anatma that we come to realize. When sakasanyawa padanam karagana pararthakami veshen ආත්මාර්ථකාමී අදහස් පදනම් කරාගෙන මිත්‍රතා ඉස්සරහට ගෙනියනොට අපි අර යථාර්ථය කියන දේ පදනම් කරාගෙන නෙමෙයි කටයුතු කරන්නේ. What we work with is what we want to work with. Not reality, but the concept that we hope to see in the world and hope to see in the beings. The concept of what we want to see ourselves in. We expect this to be the reality of persons around us. We know, as we associate beings, we know that we, as beings, are not perfect. However, knowing that beings are not perfect, knowing that we are not perfect, knowing that we make mistakes, knowing that we have a lot of mistakes, we still expect the best from the world. That is what changes. Where now, the person who is a Kalyana Mitra, who has a mentality of being able to be a Kalyana Mitra, is not deluded by the concept rooted in selfishness, but has an understanding of selflessness in the world, arising from not the world, but from ourselves. That is the primary ask of a Kalyana Mitra. If the Kalyana Mitra is expecting this insight from the world, then that person is too weak to be a Kalyana Mitra. Just imagine, with all the paramis that the Buddha perfected, without any sort of thing that the Buddha needed anymore after his enlightenment, after passing his time as a Bodhisattva and becoming enlightened, the Buddha still being able to bring himself down to serve those defiled, to serve those who were weak, to serve those who had no benefit to him personally, but simply connected to the fact of human experience and human suffering, continue to help so many beings. Taking the trouble to not only travel to nearby distances, but traveling days and months simply to enlighten a being. Just imagine. At times we think, oh, why should I go to that person? If that person wants something, let that person call me. Why should I call him? We think this in, but the Buddha did not think in that way. The Buddha went behind a murderess Angulimala. The Buddha went behind a prostitute to make her enlightened. The Buddha, when Angulimala told him to stop, the Buddha continued. That is the aspect of Kalyana Mitra. A Kalyana Mitra is rooted in the task of being able to understand themselves. We are not enlightened, but we might be closer than a lot of people may be. But a part of that closeness, a part of that practice is rooted in the understanding of our flaws as humans. That we are made up of mind and matter, nama and rupa. That along the cycle of rebirth and death, the kilesas, the sankhara dharmas that have produced these kilesas have uniquely formed us into unique beings and signatures upon this world today. Having done so, however, we, although we might be unique from one another in the way that we look, in the way that we speak, in the way that we think, and in our karmic storage, we are all similar by nature of impermanence. We are impermanent. Everything changes. The skin, from the moment 40 minutes ago when we started this talk to now, we have aged, impermanent. Cycles of mind has arose and passed away. Cycles of rupa has arose and passed away. We have changed. The mind, sankhara dharmas rooted in that which is pleasant, sankhara dharmas which are rooted in the unpleasant, and sankhara dharmas which are rooted in those that are neither pleasant nor unpleasant has arose and passed away. Kilesa dharmas have arose, kilesa dharmas which only remained at the part of anusaya, kilesa dharmas which only remained at the part of vitikama, kilesa dharmas which only remained at the part of paryuttana, arose and pass away, arose and pass away. This is human nature. Health turns into that which is not health. Aging, change, all these aspects of human nature. A Kalyana Mitra is able to see the truest reality of human nature, the nature of life. That is what makes us good Kalyana Mitras. It is that understanding to a certain extent, not the fullest, because if we had the fullest understanding of such, we would all be enlightened. No one other than an enlightened being could be anything, could be a Kalyana Mitra. That understanding fuels the ability of one to cultivate Shraddha. Shraddha towards the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. Shraddha towards the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha is not Shraddha towards Buddhism. That is very important to understand. If one has Shraddha towards Buddhism, you are now again in boxing yourself into a concept. The Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha is a symbol of enlightenment, a symbol of the doctrine, the content, the practice, and the symbol of the fruit of the practice. What we are cultivating our faith towards through the symbols of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha is the respect to the Dhamma itself, and the fruit of the Dhamma. The practice, just like we commit ourselves in the present moment to observe the breath in the middle, the beginning, the middle, and the end, we commit to the practice in the beginning, middle, and the end. That is what Shraddha does. Then arises the ability with the Shraddha, strengthens the Sila. The Sila aspect is strengthened by the Saddha because of that Shraddha that we have, we now do not derive, or we do not need to derive happiness from lowly pleasures that arise out of the breaking of Sila. Lowly pleasures out of breaking the Sila, that is no more required. We feed off like Brahmas, like Devas, who feed off ambrosia. Our ambrosia becomes the practice, the Samadhi Ekagata mind. As long as our ambrosia, our food, becomes the lowly, or is the lowly pleasures, we will constantly be bathing in the same muds that we have been bathing in samsara again and again and again and again. That is why through the Shraddha in the practice, in the beginning, middle, and the end, through respect, the content, and the fruit, we now derive happiness from Sila. And Sila becomes happiness in this kind of manner, where now the being instills or cultivates foundations of confidence, where the mind is strong. Strong, not in an egotistical manner, not rooted in selfishness or self-based concepts, but simply rooted in the wholesome mind. That is what brings that confidence. That is what brings that confidence. The Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, the danger with this confidence is sometimes, again, Banchaka Dharmas. Sometimes we feel that we are practicing Dhamma and we care so much about another person that actually through Pararthakami Veshayen, Arthmarthakami Chetanavan, Ape Jivite Tava Patirenna Patanganna. Right? Now, in the name of the Dhamma, in the name of Buddhism, in the name of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, now we start scrutinizing other people for their lack of practice. This is not Kalyana Mitrata. This is not Kalyana Mitrata. Right? This understanding comes from, again, Shraddha. Shraddha in what? The Buddha, the truest aspects of the practice. Not in the image of the Buddha, not in the image of the Tripitaka, or not in the image of the Sangha, but what they truly represent. That is what keeps us together. The mind to now develop the foundations required to further strengthen our positions. Then arises Chaga. Thiyena manusekta vitarai denna puluwan. Manusekta kisima deyak nattang manusekta denna baha. If the mind forget about wealth and let us focus on the spiritual wealth, If we do not have that spiritual wealth inside of us, we have nothing to give. We might give, but when we go into, for example, Dana Parma, which I will do for you, we realize how difficult it is to give. How difficult it is to give. It is not an easy process. And when it comes to beings who give and have no sort of qualms whatsoever over what is given, you develop so much of respect for the simple act of being able to maintain a mind from beginning to end, to give and simply give, not something which is weak, but something which is so powerful, rooted in the good and not in any way tainted. How do we then give? We can only give if we have. If we do not have that power of mind, we are unable to give. That is why a Kalyana Mitra does not or is not deluded by the idea that his satisfaction comes from the external world. He might at times fail. We might at times fail, but we know, we remind ourselves because of Shraddha, look, this is not right. We remind ourselves, this is not right. The wealth arises from within. That is when we are able to give. That is when the Bodhisattva was able to give everything that he had. That is when all of those people who fulfill the Dana Paramitas to become Pacceka Buddhas and Arahants were able to give and give up absolutely everything, when they were able to know, or when they knew that there was something now inside far more powerful, far more stronger, far more greater than any of the physical pleasures that we have, or the physical comforts that we have. This is something which arises. And when it arises, we are able to absolutely give. And giving is a very strong part of unconditional love. This unconditional love also fails when the giving is weak, when chaga is weak. Even as a mother, when you are not getting anything in return, sometimes we wonder, oh my gosh, I've done so much. That weakness in giving arises only when we falter in our minds. Then, when the chaga is strong, when the chaga is powerful, the selflessness or the mind based upon selflessness increases. Anatmaya kina me gatiya tava ape jeevitaya apita වැටෙන්න පටන් ගන්නවා. අනාත්මය කියන මේ ගතිය කියන්නේ මේ philosophy එකක් වශයෙන් නෙමෙයි, not as a theory, not as a sort of a philosophy that we are learning, but as a feeling. ඒ අනාත්මය කියන දේ වැටෙන්න අපි අර ආත්මය පදනම්ව ජීවත් වෙන ගතිය අඩු වෙනවා. ආත්මය පදනම්ව ජීවත් වෙනවා කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? What is life based on self? What is self? Rupa Vedana Sanya Sanskara Vinyanya Panchaskande Upadane Allaganima Tamai Atme. Rupa Vedana Sanya Sanskara Vinyanya Tamai me mama mata salak mage Kiname Saka Sanyawa Padanamba මෙන්න මේ සකසන්යාව පදනම් කරාගෙන අපේ සතුට අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්න ඒ සකසන්යාව මේක තමයි මේ මමත්වය. මේ බලාපොරොත්තුව ටික අඩු වෙනවා. We do not base ourselves on that delusionary self anymore. Not that we let go of this to cling on to something else, but we realize, my gosh, we don't need this to survive. We realize that the lesser that I'm holding on to sakasanya, the concept of me, myself, and I, the more blissful my life is. The lesser I worry about my children doing stuff for me, the more comfortable my relationship is with my children because I'm not expecting anything from them. The less I expect my husband, my wife, my partner to love me in the way that I hope and wish that they would love me, the easier the relationship for you is in your sanity because you are happy. You have not given the key to your happiness to someone else to make you constantly happy. That is why, or that is how letting go or the sort of the dwindling away of the sakasanya, the self, enables a person to become a true Kalyana Mitra, and a Kalyana Mitra who will travel from darkness to light, from light to greater light. That is the foundation behind that. Based upon that, now we have covered Shraddha, Chaga, and Sila. Saddha, Sila, and Chaga. Now arises, based on what we realize from this, arises wisdom. The lesser the mind is focused upon what is clung on to with regards to Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sanskara, Vijnana, the mind, when we close our eyes, as we do meditation, as we try to do meditation, practice meditation, the mind instills with ease, instills itself upon a state of awareness. The hindrances, the kileshas, the ogres, the yogas, and the fetters are all weak. And because they are weak, what happens? Inside, the mind is able to work within the space of alobha, adosa, amoha, hence allowing insights to arise. This is what Kalyana Mitrata is. This is how persons attain nirvana together. This is how persons can support one another to attain to states of Kalyana Mitrata. States of enlightenment and noble attainments. That is why the Buddha says, and thinking about the monastic life, we know from the time that we get up in the morning to the time that we see and meet the monks at the dining hall to the time that we disperse at night, right? We know the whole day is conducted in a manner where we have Dhammic inspiration. Dhammic inspiration. When we have a problem, when we have a doubt, when we want to learn something about the Dhamma, we have so much of opportunity through the day for us to be able to talk and discuss things about the Dhamma. And the Dhamma, culturally, we are so inclined to believe that the Dhamma is, dressed in white. We have a picture of the Dhamma, isn't it? We have a picture. The piety, the respect, and all of this. But the Dhamma can take many shapes and forms, right? The Dhamma is all that inclines the mind towards letting go. Letting go of what? Letting go of one's dependence upon the world. Letting go of the dependence of happiness upon the world and focusing or bringing the mind into a realistic awareness over the reality of life. That is what a Kalyana Mitra through the Dhamma does. That is how a mother's compassion, a father's compassion, when given to a child, allows the child to reach heights that the mother or the father could never dream of in their lives. That is when the compassion that is given to a person as a teacher or as a person as a friend or a teacher, when we give that compassion, that love to a person flourishes, isn't it? With love, a person flourishes in every way. When that is a type of unconditional commitment that releases us from the debt that we have towards our parents. That is a type of unconditional power that exists in the world, which keeps us day in and day out committed to the practice. Just as we see ourselves committed right now, right here. This is the power and vibration of Kalyana Mitrata that we see in the Buddha, that the Buddha has shared through the practice, through the teachings, that we see through our good friends, our Kalyana Mitras, that we see from our parents, that we see from all the people that we have had in our life who have truly, in one way or the other, cared for us in some way or another. This is what we see. The enlightening nature of Kalyana Mitrata, the flourishing spirit brought about by that Kalyana Mitrata, the liberating element that is brought about into a person, to a person's life through Kalyana Mitrata. So truly, in the long term, a person or any relationship, regardless of what or where the relationship begins, should move on to a position of Kalyana Mitrata. Those of you who have been in long-term relationships might understand this far more than the youth ever would. Where a relationship once may have started with lust and all of these sort of theatrics of the mundane world, but only flourished later on because of understanding, because of support, because of compassion, because of everything that is rooted in the wholesome. And that is what we are promoted to, sort of advised by the Buddhas. In some way or another, one fine day, the way that we incline ourselves to the path of enlightenment is through this sort of relationship, through this sort of wholesome aspects of Kalyana Mitrata, wholesome companionship. So we find ourselves then in the position today. Devika, of course, Devika Manu asked for this opportunity of sponsoring this sort of specific talk on this day last year, at the end of last year's SIL program, right? Right after the SIL program last year, right? And the SIL program fell on the 26th of May. So she called me right after and asked for this opportunity. And for her, I know she has this sort of gratitude that she always, annoyingly sometimes, speaks about all the time, which is her gratitude towards Hema Malik, her Kalyan Mitra. I think she has, without any exaggeration, spoke about this maybe about 150 times already. We understand, Devika Manu, you have a lot of gratitude towards Hema Mali, and one of the reasons of what she hopes to sort of share in today's spirit of the Dhamma talk is that she would like to share all the merits towards the friendship and the wholesome companionship that she has received from her dear friend Hema Mali. Right? So we share in that spirit with, of course, that relationship that exists within this Dhamma group. And I know all the other relationships, Dhammic relationships that exist within this group and with some of the people who are out of this group as well. may this be an homage to all those Kalyana Mitra relationships that we have had the power to uphold through our lives. We know when we think about our Kalyana Mitras, it only brings smiles to our hearts and faces because we have such pure thoughts about these people who have only been a support and sometimes aggressively supporting us when we don't even ask for it sometimes, but yet supporting. So let us pay homage to that spirit of Dhammic friendship that enhances, empowers, and directs us to enlightenment in whichsoever ways, echoing the sentiments of the Gatha. Mame bal samagamo satan samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya sasara vasana thuru kavadavat dussila Kalyana Mitra ආශ්‍රයට තොර වෙන ආශ්‍රයක් අපේ ජීවිතයට නොහමු වේවා. අපේ ජීවිතයට හැමදාම කල්යාණ මිත්‍රයන්ගේ ආශිර්වාදය රැකවරණය ලැබේවා. කල්යාණ මිත්‍රයන්ගේ ආශිර්වාදයෙන් අපිට භවයෙන් භවයට මේ නිවන් මාර්ගයේ කෙරෙහිම කටයුතු කිරීමට ශක්තිය, ධෛර්යය, වීරිය, බලය, බොජ්ජංග ආදිය වැඩෙත්වා කියා අපි සියලු දෙනාටම ආශිර්වාද කරනවා. ඒත් එක්කම මේ දවසේ, of course, something that I always do is, I believe that we are not self-made. We are made by the blessings, by the inspirations of all those people that have supported us in sometimes in negative ways, but supports the arising of things that are positive later on in life. And sometimes clearly, most of the time, then clearly supporting our direct development and growth. So sharing all merits of all the wholesome karmas that we have been able to accumulate as a community through meditation, Dhamma Sakaccha, Dhamma Deshana, and everything to do with metta, to vipassana, laukika and lokotara, all of these merits that we accrue as a community, let us share with all the beings of our samsara who have in one way or the other supported our journeys to come here today and to further develop ourselves so that we might attain nirvana as soon as possible. And this is the end of today's talk. Thank you, everyone. Over back to you, Anuma.
Okay, thank you very much, Bhante. And it was a wonderful talk and a very interesting talk. And I think there's nothing more to add. I don't want to add anything, Bhante. And we are so happy to have your guidance. We are a group of Kalyana Mitra. And I think we exchange the spiritual wealth, as you said, Bhante. We exchange, and without any expectation, we do that, Bhante. So that's all thanks to you. So thank you very much, Bhante, and we wish you all the best and good luck and good health. And Devika and Sarat, thank you very much and the daughter, Sandamali, of course, thank you very much for organizing this. So I think we need to listen to this talk, I think, more and more because it's so interesting. So we can always visit our website and YouTube channel and watch it. So thank you very much, Bhante.
All right. Before we depart, let us all chant Idam me ñāti nang hotu sukhita hontu ñātayo. Of course, we are thinking about all the collective community as a whole who are gathered here today, as well as Devika, thinking about their health and well-being, right? And the daughters' sort of ambitions and goals that they all sort of wish to accomplish in their future. And especially, whilst we think about all the suffering that people are going through in the world, let us share all these merits with all these beings all across the world who wish to share in all of these merits. And may we wish all of these beings collectively wellness, happiness, and strength and power to overcome states of sadness, dukkha, suffering, and arrive at positions of safety, positions of happiness and positions of mental and physical stability. So if we might chant, I will mute everyone so that it is not noisy on the recording. Idam me ñāti nang hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Idam me ñāti nang hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Idam me ñāti nang hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Akasattha ca bhummattha devānaga mahindika. Punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu sasanang. Akasattha ca bhummattha devānaga mahindika. Punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu desanang. Akasattha ca bhummattha devānaga mahindika. Punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu tvang sadhati. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, everyone. Thank you very much, Anuma, and for moderating. And of course, everyone else, have a wonderful rest of the day. And I will see the meditation group. We are having meditation on Sunday. So I will see you all then. Take care and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you, Devika. All right.